This is BBC News. I'm Irina Dragan. Our top story this morning: UN and EU officials are discussing today the crisis in the troubled Far Eastern European region of Ergesia. The latest waves of refugees, coupled with Ergesia's long-standing domestic issues, are threatening the already fragile regional stability. More on the subject with our special guest, Marius Mesaros, an expert on Eastern European affairs.
Thank you for the invitation.
How come you're so familiar with the remote region?
Well, I used to work as a war correspondent in the late 90s and later on as a freelance journalist. I also did my major in security studies with a particular focus on this region.
I'll have to admit, probably most of our viewers know very little about Ergesia. Before we get to talk about the current situation, the current crisis, could you give us some general fact about Ergesia and highlight the major events in its history?
Yeah, Ergesia may not be your favorite holiday destination, but it's a beautiful place and has got tremendous potential. It's got huge, vast deposits of oil and gas. It's a partially recognized autonomous region, formerly part of Segota in the Far Eastern Europe. It's bordered by Segota in the west and Madeira in the east. Unfortunately, due to the outbreak of hostilities in the 90s, it led to a complete collapse of its economy.
You mentioned interethnic hostilities. What ethnic groups are you talking about?
The population of Ergesia is approximately 5.2 million, and there are three major ethnic groups present. The first one, the largest, the Madeira Ergesian, they make up approximately 70% of the population. They are mainly located in the north, the east and the south. They control most government jobs and completely dominate the public administration. The second largest group is the Segota Ergesians. They are of Segota origin. They make up approximately 20% and are mainly located in the east of Ergesia. And the last group, we're talking about an 88%, very small, the Goma minority. They live mainly in the south.
Marius, what are the long-term challenges and difficulties facing Ergesia?
Well, the main problem is the endemic corruption, poses a threat to the rule of law. There are also many criminal gangs engaged in criminal activities and fighting for control. Secondly, numerous human rights violations and abuses have been recorded. I've got a whole list down here. They vary from unlawful imprisonment, abduction, inadequate detention conditions, all the way to limits on freedom of the press, freedom of movement, freedom of speech, and gender discrimination. Women in Ergesia, for instance, lack equal rights and opportunities. Example, they're not allowed to run executive positions within the Ergesian police force. And also the judiciary is very weak and prone to political manipulation. And one last problem are the buried landmines and other explosive ordnance that still pose a deadly threat inside Ergesia, though roads and tracks have largely been cleared.
Well, that doesn't sound too good, and I would like to talk now about the international legal status of Ergesia. What role does the international community play in this region? How can we change things there?
Well, Ergesia has been a partially recognized province, autonomous province, as I previously mentioned. It's been so since December 2014. Prior to that, between 2011 and 2014, violent clashes took place between Segotan security forces and pro-Madeira separatists who had occupied government buildings and police stations. In December 2014, a comprehensive peace agreement was signed between Segota, Madeira and the Ergesian separatists assisted by international presence. The immediate outcome was a complete end to the hostilities and the creation of a buffer zone between the warring sides. Later on in January 2015, the OSCE supervised the first elections in Aegisia, the election of the first Aegisian assembly. At the same time, the first Aegisian president was elected. We're talking about a Madeira Aegisian ethnic, a former separatist leader. His name is Igor Penev. Very quickly after his election, he appealed to the international community for support in a bid to increase stability and modernize the country. Later on, in January 2015, the UN, United Nations Security Council passed a resolution putting Aegisia under transitional UN control, UN administration, and also authorizing a UN-led peacekeeping force of approximately 2,000 military and police personnel and 1,700 civilians. It also formally granted Aegisia its autonomy. A couple of months later, actually in March 2015, based on another UN resolution, a decision of the Council of the European Union authorized formally the deployment of the European Union police mission in Aegisia.
Now that was very interesting to know about the international legal provisions for the mission in Aegisia. But Marius, what are the major issues that have triggered the current crisis?
In short, the main issues concerning Aegisia are the influx of migrants, the newly discovered mass graves, and Aegisian politics. Waves of refugees are crossing into Aegisia from the Islamic Republic of Garistan, its southern neighbor. They are trying to reach northern Europe. The 5 transit bases already present in Aegisia are overcrowded, and the disorderly behavior of the refugees has angered many Aegisians who feel the local authorities and the international community have done very little to address the issue. So basically they feel let down. If that was not enough, recently the Aegisian police service has announced the discovery of a mass grave containing the remains of approximately 100 beheaded people. And you have to imagine that's a gruesome discovery.
Wow.
And such a discovery does not help interethnic issues. All the wounds have not yet healed, and we never know, such mass graves may yet to be discovered. And on top of everything else, there's Aegisian politics, very complicated. The new rumor has it that the new Aegisian president is about to proclaim the independence of Aegisia. In theory, independence should be viewed as a positive thing, as a step forward. I mean, we're talking about a region that has been fighting to gain autonomy, let alone independence. So it should not be a problem. But you see, in Aegisia, parties are based on ethnicity. And most of these parties view such a possible declaration, very reluctantly. While not rejecting completely the idea of independence, they feel such a declaration, or the proclamation of independence, is just a stepping stone towards complete annexation by neighboring Madeira. The new president has taken a number of unofficial visits to Madeira, further raising suspicions about his true political agenda.
Things from what you've said sound really troubling, and it will be very interesting to follow the continuing events and to see how will they manage to solve them. 2018 certainly seemed to be another year of challenges in the international arena. One final question, Marius. How do you see the end of the current crisis? Do you see an end to it?
Well, I see an end to it. The obvious solution would be, or the easiest way, to put more troops on the ground, to bring additional logistics and financial resources. But I think the first step that should be taken should be to better coordinate the many international organizations present in Aegisia. As I previously mentioned, there are over 10 such organizations, varying from military to humanitarian ones. I don't neglect financial and human resources. They are very essential. However, I think first we need, and more than ever, we need to reassure the Aegisian people that the whole international community is behind them, supporting them, regardless of ethnic background, gender or political affiliation. On the other hand, any show of dissension or arbitrary decisions on the part of the international organization may add fuel to the already rising tensions. So let's hope for the better.
Well, definitely a common effort is required to solve the crisis there. Thank you very much, Marius, for your time and for sharing with us the knowledge and your thoughts for the latest developments in Aegisia.
It was my pleasure. And if I may add one last thing, I think we don't want to buy stability in Aegisia. I think we want to build trust and, in the long term, change mentalities.
Well, that is very well said, and hopefully this will happen in the direction that you've mentioned. And that is all in this edition of Breakfast News. We'll see you later in the day with the latest updates. Thank you so much.